So you're thinking about buying your own organ. That's great. I love my organ and I have no regrets buying it. But before you make any purchasing decisions, let me share with you the details about my organ. During COVID, like many people who took up a hobby, I thought it would be nice to take up organ. I have a digital piano already, and although I could connect it to a virtual pipe organ software via MIDI, it lacks a pedal board, so I was unable to play music requiring pedals. So I looked into home organs. Some people have the skill, tools and patience to build their own consoles, but living in a small apartment meant this wasn't a practical option. I would rather purchase something and wait for it to be delivered complete. For me, my first consideration was cost. I made some inquiries locally and searched online and eventually settled on Magnus Organ. They positioned themselves as not cheap, but more affordable. I was able to go online and customize the console, choosing how many manuals I wanted, the type of pedal board, and my piston layout. Importantly, the online measurements made it easy to verify that it would fit through all the doors and lifts in my building. I decided to go for a large 4-manual AGO organ with 3 swells and a reasonable complement of pistons. I figured that 4 manuals would be more challenging to play, and therefore playing any other size organ would be easier. This also meant the music would be higher and further away, but this was also fine, as it would discourage me from looking at my hands. One downside I discovered later was that my legs were a bit longer than ideal for this console, which would make operating the swell pedals a bit awkward. But this is another thing that will make performing on another console easier. Once I placed my order, it took many months to arrive. First, there were component shortages thanks to COVID. Then it took a long sea journey to Australia. When it did arrive, there was also a lot of tax to pay, plus final delivery. So be sure to research the additional costs. As this is a MIDI console, it requires a computer and virtual pipe organ software. For the computer, it's important to get one with a fast processor. Additional cores will allow you to run more programs concurrently, but usually at the cost of a lower processor speed. I decided to build a custom PC with an Intel Core i5-11600K running at 3.9 GHz. Some sample sets require a large amount of memory, so I fitted out the PC with 128 GB of RAM. To speed loading sample sets, I also opted for a solid-state drive. And here's a pro tip if you're running Windows: be sure to set the organ software's priority to real time so it isn't interrupted by background tasks. I also decided to buy 2 Dell touchscreens, which will make the organ easier to operate. I also replaced the monitor stands with ones that pivot. Most sample sets offer different perspectives of the virtual console for portrait and landscape. However, I have mostly used them in the landscape orientation. I've also settled on having all stops on a single screen, even though they are a bit smaller. A few downsides of touchscreens, however, are that they can wobble when touched, and it's not possible to cancel a bank of stops with the palm of your hand like on a physical console. As for software, you have a couple of choices. I started with GrandOrg, which is free and open source. You can find several great sample sets that run on this. However, most commercial sets require Helpwork, which is quite expensive, but more sophisticated. After trialing several sample sets from Inspired Acoustics, Sonus Paradisi and a few others, I settled on the Concert 125 by Silver Octopus Studios. The reasons I chose that sample set were it represented a large 4-manual symphonic organ, and all the samples were dry, which means I can adjust the amount of reverb using a convolution profile. It even has some special stops such as a carillon and a harp. If you decide to get a large sample set, be sure to get enough pistons to accommodate all the combinations you may need, including any floating divisions and special couplers. You could also consider getting a Novation Launchpad if you realise later you need more buttons. For sound, I decided to invest in a professional audio interface. After extensive research, I settled on the Mark of the Unicorn, or Motu, Ultralight Mark V. One of the reasons I chose this over a cheaper Motu product such as the M2 was that it has built-in DSP, which means I can adjust the equalization if I need to. And as the interface is portable, I can use it for other things in the future too. For sound output, you also need to think about whether you need speakers or headphones. I decided to get both. For speakers, I wanted studio monitor grade speakers, but not insanely expensive. After extensive research, it came down to either Yamaha or Adam Audio. In the end, I went with Adam for both aesthetics and the cutover frequency, which was a bit higher.
The Adams tweeter also has a broader sound field, which was a consideration given their placement behind the computer screens. I also paired these with a 10-inch subwoofer. I don't use my speakers all the time though, because my lounge isn't acoustically treated and I don't want to annoy my neighbours too much.
So let's talk about the headphones I bought. Again, after extensive research, I settled on Beyerdynamic over-ear headphones because they had a great frequency range, they sound amazing, they're super comfortable, and are well worth the money. They offer both open back and closed back. The open back ones sound great, but leak audio in and out, so you should only use these if you're in a quiet environment. The closed back ones sound amazing too, so either choice is fine.
The music rest on this organ is large and can accommodate several pages of music. However, I use Fourscore, the digital music library software, for most of my music. As I only own an 11-inch iPad Pro, I found that at that distance away from my eyes, the notes are just a little bit small. So I've also added a 2K portable monitor by Porpoise. If I'm playing from sheet music, I just put that on top. For lighting, I've added a broad desk lamp, but this creates glare on the screen, so I leave it off for that. And that is my organ. So I hope you found this video useful, and all the best buying your own organ. Happy playing!